today I want to build a Redis session store for Koyo. Koyo has this notion of a session manager, and every manager takes a store. A store is just an interface for storing and retrieving session information. And sort of the default implementation that Koyo provides is just a memory session store, which, as the name implies, just stores all that information into process memory. And that means two separate server processes can't share the same session data at the same time. So in addition to storing this information in memory, when the session store is, or when the session manager is stopped, the memory session store persists that data to disk, so another process can actually pick up those same sessions and continue. It's just that two concurrent processes can't share the same session information. But then by using something like Redis, which can act like as an external shared memory, we can actually have two processes share the same session information. So yeah, like I said, today I want to build something like that. And so for that, I'm going to use Redis-lib, which is a library that I made. And yeah, let's get started. I think I'm going to call the package Koyo sessions Redis, just because if, for example, maybe in the future I want to make one for Postgres as well, then at least these will, sort correctly. So that one might be called Koyo sessions Postgres. So let's see, Koyo sessions Redis. I think I'm going to make this a single collection package. So I'm just going to make an info file in the root here. Info define collection is going to be Koyo. And then version just 0.0. Deps, it's going to depend on Koyo lib. Build deps. Now it's also going to depend on base, right? No build deps for now. That should be enough. So it's going to be in the Koyo collection, but when it's imported, I want it to be imported as Koyo session Redis, right? Let me just make sure that's the right. Yeah, okay. So the existing module is at Koyo/session, and this I'd want to be at Koyo/session/Redis. So since I specified the Koyo collection, all I need to do is make a folder called session in here, and then a module called redis.racket. Okay. Oh, and I forgot, we also need Redis-lib. And let's take a look at what Koyo's session store interface looks like. So unfortunately, I haven't documented this, but it's relatively straightforward, right? So this is the interface. So we need these, however many there are, 7 functions to implement a store. So let's just bring Koyo session in, and then let's maybe make a logger Redis session store. And let's define a struct Redis session store. And that's going to contain a client, and it's going to implement these methods. Okay, that builds. Okay, that should be pretty straightforward. Let's also bring in Redis. And then maybe in addition to the client, there should be some sort of a prefix. So prefix, or like key prefix. Right, so that when we store things in Redis, they'll all be prefixed by key prefix, followed by maybe like a colon and then the actual key, so that a single Redis database could serve multiple apps. Okay. Let's just make a smart constructor. Client, well, actually, let's make that required, and then the prefix. And then maybe just have a default prefix called sessions. Right, so you don't have to provide it unless you want to. So client, let's see. Redis, so you get back to Redis. Then prefix. I'm going to require that this is a non-empty string. After that, I'm going to need Racket string. And then this is just going to make a Redis session store using the client and the key prefix. And then let's provide make Redis session store. Whoops. Store. Oh, and then cool. Let's go back here. So maybe let's implement the first method here, which is session store generate ID. Let's maybe add a helper here called prefixed. Maybe call it format. And then it takes a format string and then some args. It also takes the store. And then what does it do? It takes the prefix out of the store. And then it just applies format. No, okay, so it prepends the prefix and then applies format string to args. Okay, so if we're given, whoops, we need Racket format. And so if we're given a Redis session store, just make the client false for now, foo, and then given bar a. Oops, I meant to apply format here. Yeah, okay, so that does what I want. Cool. So when we generate an ID, it looks like over here what we do is we just generate we have a sequence number followed by a random string. So maybe let's do the same thing over here. we'll maybe make sequential ID, which let's just extract the client, Redis session store client, and then let's see. Is that under string commands? Anchor, yep. So we can just run Redis bytes anchor, and we should probably also just convert these to bytes. Well, no, the client will do that automatically, I believe. Yeah, because a Redis key can be either a bytes or a string. Okay. So we're gonna increment the key. That's gonna be like, just call it sequence. And we're not gonna, oh, I guess we do have to provide an amount. That's weird. I'd have preferred if Redis bytes anchor actually just defaulted to 1. Oh, it looks like it does. So I just need to change the documentation. Okay, and then the result is going to be that sequential ID dot generate random string, which we can get from Koyo random. Okay. Let's run an instance of Redis. Maybe make a store over here. So make Redis session store. Make Redis. Oops. Okay, and then session store generate ID. Whoops. Cool, yeah, so now with every one of these, we'll get some nice random IDs that can't clash because we have this sequential number up front. Okay. So let's see about load. I think we might not need to implement load and persist because so these are intended for session stores like the memory session store, which actually which don't continually persist that information anywhere except memory, right? So these are provided as sort of hooks to let the store persist and load data if it needs to, but because we're actually operating directly against the Redis database here, we don't need to do anything. So I'm just going to implement those as void. So session store load is going to be void. Define session store persist is going to be void. So that's easy enough. So now if I make a session store, let's see, and then call session store load on it, and it does nothing. And the same for persist. Okay. And then for ref set, update and remove. Oh, I guess one more thing we're going to want to have here is the TTL. Because we're going to want to know how long to keep sessions in the store for. And the TTL, maybe the default should be something like 7 days. Because I believe that's what it is for the memory session store as well, yeah. Okay, so TTL is going to be an exact positive integer, and we're going to pass it in over here. Cool. And then going back here. So I guess all we need to implement is ref set update and remove now. Maybe let's start with set. So set takes a session ID, a key and a value. Session store set. Extract the client. Now I want to think about how I want to store this information. I think I'm just going to use Redis hashes. Yeah, and maybe after every, let's see, hash set. So the only problem with using the Redis hash for this is I'm going to have to call expire separately, which I kind of don't want to do. So what I mean is, if I did this sort of the naive way, I would run Redis hash set followed by a Redis key, or I don't remember what it is, something like I think it's under key commands. Yeah, so I'd run a Redis hash set followed by a Redis expire in for that key. And now what I don't like about this is this takes 2 round trips, right? So we run one command, then run the other, and that kind of sucks. So what we can do here is actually we can use scripts, which this lets you run a Lua script. Against the Redis server, and the advantage of this is, one, the Lua script gets cached, so we're not sending the whole script over the wire every time, but 2, both of those things, both of those Redis commands can run in one round trip, and also they run sort of while a Lua script is running in Redis. It's the only thing, because Redis is single-threaded, it's the only thing that can run at that time. So it's also kind of more atomic. It's still not, well, I don't remember exactly whether or not Redis will persist changes if a script fails midway through. So it might actually be atomic, right? Because if the script runs run command and then power to the machine fails, right? When Redis boots back up, I believe it'll act as if nothing happened, right? So it won't actually like commit those changes unless the script executes successfully. But I might be wrong about that. Either way, I think this is the way we'll go here. So that means, though, that we'll need a few more arguments here, or I guess fields here. I'm thinking about what I should call this. Yeah, maybe just setter. So then when you construct one of these things, you also make a Redis script using the client. Let's see, script. So the first script is going to be the setter. And the setter, what's it going to do? It's just going to call Redis hm set. I believe that's the command. Hm set, yep. For keys. And then it's going to call expire. Do we want to expire in seconds or milliseconds? In seconds. So expire that key in RGV3. Okay. So instead of taking the client out now, we'll take the setter out. And we'll just call it with, oh, I guess we also need the client. Redis store client. And then the keys are going to be just K. Args are going to be, whoops, no, the key is going to be formatted session colon session ID, and then the arguments are going to be K, V, and TTL, where we're going to have to get TTL from our client. So now, if I make, oops, an expected symbol. Oh yeah, I forgot my Lua. Lua doesn't need $signs for variables. So session store, generate an ID. Okay, and then that's session store set. A and then 42. Right, of course. Well, okay, for now let's just set it to a string, and we'll have to fix that. Expected bytes or a string given. Right, okay, so I'm not calling expire correctly there. Oh, I guess I have to convert the DTL to a string here. Whoops. Okay, attempt to call HMSet. Oh, right, because that's not how you call things. I think this has to be uppercase. Okay. Now if I just look at what keys we have in Redis, looks like we have this key, and if I try to get all its key and value pairs, we have A and B there. But that's not, so right now this only supports setting string or byte values, but that's not what we want. We want to actually be able to serialize the data that we get in here if it is serializable, and then deserialize it on the way out. And so for that, we're going to need to bring in, what was it? Racket serialize. Yep. And let's just make a couple helpers here. So serialize star is going to be a function that takes a value and then call it output bytes out. It's going to serialize that value and then write it to the output. We need Racket port. So now if I want to serialize the value 5, I can do that, and then I can also serialize more complicated things like a list 1, 2, 3. That works. And then let's add a deserialize star, which takes a byte string, and then deserialize just takes any value. Okay, so deserialize is just compose one deserialize read. Is that true? No, because I need to call with input bytes, because read expects a string, so I couldn't, or it expects an input port, I'm sorry. So deserialize read in. I mean, I could have done this, right? So if I serialize, then I can deserialize star, and I get back the same thing. So now instead of just passing in a plain V here, we pass in a serialize V. Okay. So now myself a new session, and now if I try to session store set a list 1, 2, 3, that works. I should make it return void there, just so that it doesn't keep returning false like that. I guess I don't know if the interface requires it to return anything. No, so this returns void. Cool. And let's add session store ref. Now I'm wondering whether or not referencing a value from the session should increase the session's expiration time. I kind of feel like it should, so let's prepare to do that. Define client, yep, we need the client. And yeah, we should just use the get, well, we should do the same thing and define a getter. So Redis session store getter, and then void, sorry, not void in this case. probably, let's see, so default here, yeah, default here can be a procedure. So we'll deal with it in a second. Let's maybe just write our getter script. Maybe just use setter, oops, and getter. How should this work? Look would be so from the first key, get the first argv, and then call expire is one, argv2, and then return v. And let's not forget to add the setter here, or the getter, excuse me. And maybe let's just call it for now. And let's maybe add a helper here. And it's going to be fnt SNS session. And then args is going to be the key and the TTL, which we have to convert to a string first. Okay. Let's see. Make a session ID, store some information, and then ref that information. Oh. The default is just going to be false. Okay, so far so good, but then what if I ref something that doesn't exist? Then that's just false. That's good. And so what we get back is a list of bytes or a list with just false. So let's maybe bring in match. And then match on the result here. And so if it's just a list with false, then if default is a procedure, call it, otherwise we return it. If it's a list of some bytes, then we deserialize those bytes. Okay. Oops, 51. Okay, 51. Yep, so we need false. Oops. We get B, we get back false. And then if I provide a procedure, cool. Okay. And I guess the only two that remain, well, one is remove. Let's look, what was it? So we got ref set, update, and remove. I kind of feel like I should probably do remove first. And then update will probably just implement in terms of ref and set. that seems reasonable. Although, so I don't like that because it requires 2 round trips like before, but I don't think that can be avoided because update needs to be able to run a function, a Racket function against the value. So we have to bring the value into Racket, then change it, then set it, right? So yeah, there's no way for us to avoid that. We can't run Racket code inside of Redis. Just inline that, and then this as well. So yeah, let's just implement session store remove. So that just removes a particular key from the user session, and same as the other 2 operations, I'm going to make this increase the expiration time. Now I'm wondering what to call it, deleter or remover. Let's call it remover. Redis script client remover. It's going to call Redis call. I think it's hmdel v1, and Redis call expire v2. Okay. Same as before, bring in the TTL. Client, Redis session store client, remover, and then just call void on remover, pass in the client, a list of our key, which we actually have to, a list of our session ID, and then a list of our key, and then the TTL. So there's quite a bit of duplication here, which we're gonna get rid of in a sec. But first, let's test this out. And maybe set a value, then remove it. Oops. I had a typo in here. Set it, then remove it. Oop. I guess it's not hmdel, it's something else. Probably just hdel, right? Yep. Okay, can remove it as many times as we like, and now if we ref it, it's a default. Maybe let's just say not found. Cool. And then just update is going to be session store update. Okay. I call this value, but it's not value. As in hash update expects a function in that position. Yeah, it expects an updater. So we have 5 store ref default session store set data of v, like that. Right? So now I go back and make myself another session here, and just run session store update. What is it going to be? Let's just do that. Now if I ref a, it should be equal to 1. Whoops. If I update it again, it should be equal to 2. Great. So that works. I'm not too happy with all the duplication here when calling these functions, so maybe let's just make a little dispatch thing. Let's see, what might that look like? So we might call it dispatch, and then it takes, let's call it dispatch star. Because then it takes what? It takes the session store, takes a symbol for the function ID, or maybe it takes an accessor. And then, what do all of these have in common? The key is always the same. So there's a session ID, and then there's some arguments followed by a TTL. So I kind of feel like I want to set, I kind of want to reverse that. Yeah. Yeah, okay. And so then we're gonna, oh, and actually I don't even need to reverse that because it'll know to take the TTL out on its own. So Redis session store TTL, and then take the client out. And then take the function out of the session store, and then it's just going to call the function with the client, pass in the keys as format session ID of the session ID, and then the values as just append to the args the list containing the TTL. Okay? And then on top of this, let's just bring in syntax parse define. Syntax parser dispatch. Is that what the syntax is like? I always forget. No. And so dispatch is going to take the SS, which is an expression, and then the method, which is an ID, followed by session ID, which is an expression, and then arg, which is just a list of expressions. And then we're going to make an accessor ID by calling format ID on the method. That's just going to be Redis session store method ID. And the result of this whole thing is going to be a dispatch star call using SS, accessor ID, and all the args. And then we need Racket syntax, I believe, for format ID. Yep. And now going back here, we can replace that whole thing with just dispatch setter and SID K serialized star. And just void the whole thing out. I'm just going to comment this out in case I got that wrong, but I believe that's right. Oops. Redis session store method. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, it's called method, not method. There we go. So just to try to test that out real quick, I'm just going to copy this and then expand the last expression. Yeah. So it just expands to a call to dispatch star, passes in the session store, the accessor, followed by the session ID, followed by the list of arguments, which seems right. Just test it out. Oops. The call to format session ID here is wrong. Whoops, and then this should be args, not values. Yeah, there we go. So now if I ref, that works. So let's do the same thing here. So we're going to match on a call to dispatch getter, the session ID, and in this case just the key. Cool. Update doesn't need any changes. And then for remove, same thing. Dispatch S remover sid K. Sweet. Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad. I'm gonna add some tests, like some actual real tests, but for now, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually try and plug this into Machacha. I want to see how it holds up, or if it holds up. So I'm just gonna hack this up real quick. No, I forgot to actually install the package, didn't I? So package install. The name is okay. Let's see if that works. Cool. So now inside of Machacha, I should be able to import Koyo session Redis. that works fine. And now where I make my session store here, oh, I guess I need to also import Redis. Let's see, Redis. So when I make my store, I'll just make a store, make Redis session store. Client is going to be make Redis, and that should be enough. And now, if I start up Machacha server, and then, oops, I have it running in another session, so I'm just going to do this. Oops, go. Okay. Oh, I see. So the keys, I didn't realize this, or I forgot, but the keys are supposed to be symbols, not strings. So let's just make a little define symbol 2 bytes helper, all with output bytes, out, right, out. And then wherever we pass in a key, it's just going to be symbol 2 bytes, dispatch, symbol 2 bytes, and then symbol 2 bytes. It might make sense to actually serialize the keys as well, but we'll see. So now let's just do this. Fresh, okay. So far so good. Let me try adding something to the cart. Yep, that works. Seems to work fine. Let's see how long we're spending just doing session stuff. Not very long. So, 260 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, even less here. That's not too bad. Maybe instead of passing in a Redis, I guess one problem with this is it expects a client where it should probably expect a pool, or maybe either. I don't remember exactly how pools work in Redis lib. Let's see, connection pooling. Yeah, so you have to use call with Redis client when you use a pool, so it's pools and clients aren't interchangeable unless you use the air quotes easy API, but I don't think I want to do that. I think I'm just going to switch to using a pool here. So I'll just call that pool. And then maybe just call with Redis client on the pool, and then lambda client cool, and then inside of dispatch we'll do the same thing. Just call Redis client And then here, it's going to take a pool. I think, yeah. Just pass the pool in. Let's change Machacha to make a Redis pool. Make sure that works. Oh, client, where am I using client? Ah, that's a little annoying. I guess in order to register the scripts, I actually need to take a connection from the pool. So let's just getter or setter getter remover, and then call with Redis client on the pool client, and then return those three values. Setter getter remover. Oop. And I need to change this to say pool, but what I'm probably going to do is actually make this not a keyword argument. Okay, and then come back here. So my session still works. Turns out this is slower because the pool implementation could definitely be improved. Well, it's not slower by much, but yeah, I can improve that as well. But at least now we're not sort of you know, every single thread won't be waiting on the same client all the time. So I mean, so far so good. Like the implementation is good enough, at least for Machacha right now. At least for, you know, these cases. And so let's come back here. Let's maybe add some scribblings. So, what should I call the file? I'll just call it Koyo. Redis scribble manual require for label Koyo session Redis Racket-based title Redis session store for Koyo. The author is going to be me. Last email. And we're gonna, is it defmod? Defmod Jewel. Koyo session Redis. Okay. Let's add an entry for the scribblings. I didn't notice my documentation. I think I might need to reinstall the package. Because when you add scribblings after the fact, I believe, oh no, okay. Cannot open input file. Why is it trying to look up the file inside of Koyo doc? That's weird. Docs, Racket lang. If I just write scribblings, I don't think it'll find it. Oh, it does. Never mind. So it's a list of documents to build. I wish this had more examples. Why does it look because of that? No, okay. Why would it be looking for the scribblings there? That makes no sense to me. Am I editing the wrong info file? No. What is going on? What happens if I do that? Huh. Okay, what if I make a folder called scribblings? And then move it in there. It is running the right file, so maybe I'm just confused about what the error means. It can't open the input file with scribblings. Why is that? Search file or directory. Let me try Racket package remove Koyo sessions Redis. And then reinstall it. Because I get the sense that the package system is somehow confused by the fact that two packages with scribblings have scribblings in the same collection, but that doesn't sound right. Cannot open. So what is the context? Scribblings, Koyo sessions. Maybe Koyo doc is doing something dumb. Doc info. That is so weird. this. Racket setup. It seems to be trying to import some weird module, but I don't understand why. I haven't run into this problem before. Like, I've made Koyo postmark, for example, and that has scribblings, right? And it is in the same collection. So what is going on here? Koyo doc, scribbled up, and Racket doc. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Huh. And then what happens if I just remove that entry? Okay. And then how did I do it in Koyo postmark? I guess I had an empty list for the options, but I doubt that makes any difference. Nope. What in the world? Okay, let me just move it into here. I mean, I doubt this will do anything, but it's how I did Koyo postmark for session. Oops. Redis. I'm so confused right now. What? What in the world? That is so weird. Huh. What's it called? Koyo sessions. Let's just do that. Let's see, Redis session store. Run setup again. Oh, now it doesn't like that the file name is clashing with another scribble file name. Redis, Koyo sessions, Redis scribble. So that's also quite annoying. It'd be funny now if we run into that old issue again. Okay. Docs, Koyo session Redis. Can't find it. What in the world? Okay. Cool. This module provides an implementation of a Koyo session store that stores session data in a Redis database. And then I just have the one procedure, which is, I guess I can drop the logger because I never actually use it. And there is one for Redis, so if you really cared, you could look at the Redis logs. So we got make Redis session store, and that depends, or that takes a pool, which is a Redis pool. It takes what? Why was it over here? Prefix, which is a non-empty string and defaults to sessions. A TTL, which is an exact positive integer, and that defaults to 7 days. And then you get back a Redis session store. And maybe let's provide that as well. Anything, and then returns a boolean. So it just returns true when B is a Redis session store. Maybe also link to the tech. Alright. Returns a session or a tech session store that there's session data in a Redis in the Redis database that Racket pool interacts or is connected to. That the clients in or provided by are connected to. The Racket TTL argument is used to configure how long sessions are kept in the pool before they expire. Every interaction with a session increases or resets its expiration time. And then the Racket prefix argument can be used to configure the prefix of session entry keys inside of the database. This can be useful when running multiple applications against the same Redis instance. Okay, we need a couple things here. So we need Redis. I also referenced a couple of things from Racket string. What else? Let's see what that looks like. Okay. How do you reference tech across documents? I guess you have to do that. Define this. What's it look like again? Doc. Things. Where is that defined in Koyo? Doc. Scribblings. Session. Maybe just Koyo scribble is what I need to reference. I guess this would have to be Koyo scribblings. Still nope. Koyo scribblings session. I guess I can find out actually. Koyo session. I just remember it. There's a way to like. Is it if I click on somewhere here? Let's see. Session store. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this should have worked. I wonder why it didn't. Here. Let's try that again. Nope, doesn't like that for some reason. Oh, it doesn't. Undefined tag. What am I doing wrong? And here. Okay, now I'm not sure why this isn't working. But then also, I'm still confused about this. There's apparently a duplicate tag here. And it's skipping my Redis docs now. Let me just run check package deps, unused package deps. So, maybe I need all of them, but no, that doesn't seem right. Yeah. Redis doc. So something is really messed up about the way my scribblings are hooked up here, but I can't figure it out. Why does it interact badly? With Redis lib, for one. I don't understand. Let's see. Maybe it's just that I messed it up before, and now it's... Let's see what this does, if anything. Okay, yeah, so the Redis docs are now being rendered. But it doesn't seem to notice the dependency here. But now if I search for Redis, what? Is it really the fact that I called this module Redis that's causing problems? And why are my Redis docs? Why can't I find them here? Redis. What the hell? Okay, let me just run a full setup here. This is going to take a while, but... Okay, that works. So I guess I just needed to update the index. And now, what did it say? Yeah, okay, that's fine, because I just added that as a test. Okay, so the Redis linking now works fine. The problem is still this tech thing. Oh, and let me just make sure. Yeah, So now I have my Redis docs and Koyo session Redis. Alright. But then why can't I link to that tech? I seem to be doing it right. Maybe it really has to be directly linking to session.scribble. Package Koyo sessions Redis packages. Nope. Did it have like a tag? Koyo doc session. Yeah, there's a tag, but I don't know how to reference tags. Doc and tag prefixes. Maybe there is no def tag. Oh wow, I'm an idiot. There is no notion of a session store. So in Koyo doc. Oh wow. Def tech session stores implement the or implementations or decide how the underlying session data is stored. How the session data is stored. That's good enough for now. So let's see if that fixes the problem. Oh man, I'm such an idiot. Okay, so far so good. I feel like before... Oh, guess not. Oh yeah, because now... Okay, this should be Koyo. Yeah, okay. Cool. So now this just takes me to session stores. Great. Whew, that was interesting, and I'm still not sure what the problem was with where this file was stored. Like I don't think it overlapped with any other documentation modules, so that was weird, but okay, at least the immediate problem is solved. And yeah, let's maybe just work on adding some tests here, and then we can call it a day. Maybe let's just commit this. Add a readme Redis or Koyo sessions Redis, a Redis-based session store for Koyo. Okay. copy the license stuff. And then copy the license from Koyo. Oops. Alright. And then add a git ignore file. Okay. And now let's write some tests. So to run the tests, we'll use rack unit, but then also we are going to need a Redis URL to be able to run the tests at all. So maybe let's just get that from the environment. And then only when we have a Redis URL do we, let's see. We parse it and then connect to it or get a pool. So what are the values? Username, password, host. Host port db parse. We just call it URL. Alright, and then make a pool. Make Redis pool. Host port. Okay, and then using that, we're going to make a store. And just run some basic tests, right? Get a session ID. Generate ID, give it a store. Then store set should be a symbol. And then when we ref false, we should get back that same list, 1, 2, 3. Just use quote there. So Redis URL is going to be Redis 127001. I think the port is 6379 db0 macro test. Okay. We call this store and retrieve. Whoops. Test case ref non-existent check equal. This should be equal to not found, because that's what I'm returning. Test case, well, okay, and then maybe here we also do a check exception, not found. Oops. Okay. Session store remove. else here. Everything still works. Cool. Session store update. I'm just gonna add one to it, and then when we get it back, it should be equal to 1. When we run it again, it should be equal to 2. Oh, 47. Oh, because I called it X instead of A. Great, and then test case store serializable struct. No, what was it? Define struct serializable, or is it just struct serializable? Or serial? Racket serialize. It's the other way around. It's serializable struct. X. And then session store set 2, and then when we get it back, it should be equal to foo42. Nope. Ah, okay, so I need to define this at the top level here. Okay, and it needs to be transparent, because otherwise it can't be compared. There we go. Sweet. Cool, and let's just run another setup here. I think we need to add rack unit lib as a dependency here. Let me just rerun that. So I wonder if I might have changed the file before Racco setup got to it. So yeah, okay. Cool. Core, add some tests. Sweet. Well, that was it. I hope that was entertaining. Maybe me stumbling over the documentation stuff was kind of boring, but yeah. Thanks for watching.